Good afternoon, everyone. Shalom. I'm Shosh Bedrosian, spokeswoman for the National Public Diplomacy Directorate here in the Prime Minister's office. I'll take a few questions after a couple of very brief points to share with you. Of course, just make sure you're putting your questions in the chat that is accessible for everyone to see on the Zoom. Please state your name and your outlet as well. It is Sunday, November 9th, and today marks day 765 since Hamas launched a war against Israel, kidnapping our people and massacring their communities. Prime Minister Netanyahu said at the beginning of this war that he would return all of our hostages without exception. What started as a nightmare of 255 of our people being held by terrorists in Gaza, including 4 people kidnapped before the war, is now down to 4. With today's release, Israel has secured the release of 251 people taken by despicable Palestinian terrorists, and we are committed to bringing the remaining hostages home, each and every one of them. I am standing here right now as the remains of one of our believed to be hostages is making its way to the Forensic Institute to be identified. About 30 minutes ago, the Red Cross handed over to the IDF the remains of a deceased hostage in Gaza. A military ceremony took place by our special forces to honor this life. Israel believes the remains now in our hands are of Lieutenant Hadar Golden, who was killed in battle in Gaza back in 2014 with his body kidnapped by Hamas terrorists into a tunnel. We can only be certain this is Hadar of blessed memory once the identification process is completed by the Forensic Institute and confirmed to his family. Hadar was a soldier in the Givati Brigade when he was fighting in Operation Protective Edge in Gaza. On August 1st, 2014, after Hamas violated a brokered ceasefire deal, within the first hour it was established, terrorists emerged from a tunnel in Rafah and attacked IDF soldiers, killing 3 of them. Hadar was shot and killed during this Hamas attack, with terrorists dragging his body back into the tunnel. For the Prime Minister, this is personal. Bringing Hadar home for a dignified Jewish burial is a commitment Prime Minister Netanyahu made 11 years ago, and it's a story he has held close to his heart. The Prime Minister has a smiling photo of Hadar inside of his office, reminding him every day of this commitment to ensure all of our hostages, every single one of them, is brought home. As a Jew, as an Israeli, and a former combat fighter for this country, I can tell you that Prime Minister Netanyahu understands the importance of bringing home the remains for the families. In Israel, we do not abandon our soldiers, living or fallen. Bringing them home is a sacred covenant between the nation and those who defend it. The Prime Minister describes this moral duty as the legacy from the founding of the State of Israel, and to return our soldiers who fell in battle no matter the circumstances and the amount of time it might take to complete this important and critical mission. As the Prime Minister works to bring home the remaining hostages in captivity, he also pursues all avenues to bring home our fallen soldiers beyond our borders. Specifically, the Prime Minister said this morning before the government meeting how Israel is still working to bring home the remains of a soldier from the First Lebanon War in 1982 and the remains of Israeli hero Eli Cohen, whose body is still being held from 1965 in Syria. We will not let up bringing all of them home, every single one of them. With our focus on upholding the current ceasefire, we demand Hamas return our remaining hostages still in captivity. Their names are Ran Gvili, Meni Goddard, Dror Or, and Thai national Sutiask Rintalak. Hamas knows where our hostages are located inside of Gaza, and we are fully aware they can find each and every one of them if they put more effort into upholding their side of the ceasefire agreement. Next, to talk about Lebanon, Israel continues to insist on the full enforcement of the ceasefire agreement with Lebanon. Israel is taking steps to ensure our security. We will not allow Hezbollah, the terrorist organization, to recover, rebuild its strength, and threaten Israel from anywhere in Lebanon. Hezbollah's terrorist activities constitute a violation of the understandings between Israel and Lebanon, and the IDF will continue to operate to remove any threats to the citizens of Israel and our soldiers. Yesterday, the IDF eliminated 3 terrorists in southern Lebanon, 2 operatives of the Lebanese Brigades terrorist organization, which operates under Hezbollah guidance, who were smuggling weapons, and a Hezbollah terrorist who was working to restore the organization's military infrastructures. On Thursday, the IDF struck at multiple Radwan Force terror targets and arms depots in southern Lebanon. And now to talk about the economy. Israel's geopolitical status continues to strengthen, and our economy is growing even stronger than before October 7th. I can share with you today that the S&P has upgraded Israel's credit rating. And additionally, Israel's robust economy continues to soar even in wartime, when our economy should have shrunk and investments in Israel should have decreased. We saw the exact opposite. Israel has a new historic low unemployment rate, which is currently under 4%. Israel's debt to GDP ratio is now one of the lowest in the Western world at 68%, and the shekel has strengthened against the dollar by 13% this year. Also, international investments are continuing to increase as well, especially in the world of high-tech. Just this past year, the high-tech field brought in more than 40 billion shekels to Israel alone. I'll now take a few questions. Okay, first one from Laser Berman, The Times of Israel. Hadar Golden's body was found by Hamas in the Israeli-controlled part of the Gaza Strip, then was taken back into Hamas-controlled territory, which Israel demanded his remains be handed over. Why does Israel let Hamas take bodies of hostages back into territory it controls? Is the Prime Minister open to any proposals that would allow the 100 to 200 Hamas operatives in tunnels in Rafah return to Hamas-controlled territory? Laser, in terms of your specific question here, I want to make it very, very clear. Hadar Golden's return is the first and foremost a humanitarian matter. It is a priority for the Prime Minister. 11 years we have been pushing, we have been demanding for the release of Lieutenant Golden's body. Here we are at a pivotal moment in time where we believe his remains are finally coming back to Israel and on its way to the Forensic Institute. At this point in time, we have a sacred obligation to make sure his remains are returned, in addition to our remaining 4 hostages in captivity at this point in time, in addition to all of the other hostages, other countries who are holding our people outside of our borders as well. Prime Minister Netanyahu has made this abundantly clear. He will do everything to bring home all of our hostages. That is a priority. And going back to your questions, I'm really not sure what you're actually referring to, but let's make it very, very clear. Bringing home Hadar's remains is of utmost importance to the Prime Minister. Maria Traspaderne, I have 2 questions. Will Israel guarantee safe passage for Hamas members in the Rafah area controlled by the Israeli army once the return of hostage Hadar Golden's body is confirmed? Can you confirm that United States Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, and Trump advisor Jared Kushner will visit Israel tomorrow? In terms of that, I will continue to reiterate the coordination between President Trump's administration and Prime Minister Netanyahu and our team here is crystal clear, and it is very, very strong. We will continue to work together on all fronts, and especially, of course, under the ceasefire plan, which was brought to fruition with the help from President Trump and from Prime Minister Netanyahu, of course, that got us to this point in time where we currently have this ceasefire in place. We are expecting Hamas to uphold their side of the agreement. We have 4 hostages still in captivity. At this point in time, we are demanding for Hamas to release them. Remember, this was the first point of the 20-point plan, that all of our hostages are released. It doesn't matter their backgrounds, doesn't matter where they come from, doesn't matter if they're Israeli or not. We want all of our hostages back. That's the first point of this plan. And going back to the question about Lieutenant Hadar Golden, it is our priority to make sure he comes home, his remains are returned home, and he has a dignified Jewish burial, the same way that his family has been wanting him to come home, in addition to the Prime Minister, for 11 years now. Remember how we got here. You can ask about anything you want, but let's talk about the series of events that got us here. Back in 2014, we had one of our soldiers, Hadar Golden, kidnapped. His body was kidnapped after he was murdered 11 years ago. We have not forgotten about him, and we will do everything, of course, to get our remaining hostages out, but to bring Hadar and the remaining hostages back home for a dignified burial. That is our focus, and that's the exact terminology and the wording of our 20-point plan that we've continued to reiterate over the last month. And like I said, I answered your second question there. Let's see. This is from Alexander Cornwell from Reuters. Masked Israeli settlers, often carrying sticks or firearms, have been repeatedly filmed in recent weeks, threatening, intimidating, and physically assaulting Palestinians and journalists and other civilians in the West Bank. Does the Israeli government condemn this behavior by its citizens? What actions is the government taking to ensure that the perpetrators are brought to justice and that the West Bank is made safe for Palestinians, journalists, and others who have been attacked by this? In terms of any violence that's being reported inside of Judea and Samaria, any illegal activity should be condemned, and security forces, of course, should be dealing with this. Numerous amounts of terrorist attacks have actually taken place against Jews in Judea and Samaria. Let's not forget what's happening there. That is our ancient homeland. And there's, of course, disproportionate amount of media coverage that does not, unfortunately, get the headlines that we should be seeing, and the attacks that happen against Jews there. But like I said, any type of activity should be condemned if it's illegal activity as well. This is from Norit. I'm not sure what your outlet is, but the U.S. has been pushing to establish the Board of Peace and Deployment of ISF, the International Stabilization Force, for the second phase of the peace plan in Gaza. How does Israel react to it? Does Israel support the deployment of the ISF into Gaza? I will make this very simple. Just read the 20-point plan. The International Stabilization Force is listed under the 20-point plan. Israel will abide by the 20-point plan, and we are upholding that plan. We have been from the beginning. As Hamas continues to violate it, we will uphold it. And let's remember, point one, we will get home all of our hostages. We are still waiting for the return of our remaining hostages in the Gaza Strip. Hannah Julian, the Jewish edition. Turkey has issued arrest warrants for 37 Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Netanyahu, and the U.S. has been pressuring Israel to accept the participation of Turkey in the International Security Force, and the multinational civil military administration in Phase 2 is expected to oversee the governing specifically of the Gaza Strip. So in terms of that, here's what I can tell you, and of course, thank you for your questions. There will be no Turkish boots on the ground in the present, in the past, in the future, specifically in the International Stabilization Force. Shana Fold from Israel Daily News. Is Lebanon's army equipped to actually disarm Hezbollah, and are they making efforts to do so? What kind? Of course, there's a ceasefire in place, and we are expecting it to be upheld. Israel is continuing to enforce the ceasefire in Lebanon and to ensure that Hezbollah does not pose a threat to Israel's citizens, to our people, and of course our soldiers as well. And Israel will take actions to defend our border. And of course, like I mentioned in our briefing, Shana, you can go back and just take a look of the specific details that I gave on that. Aryeh O'Sullivan from Khan English Radio. Will the IDF allow the Hamas terrorists trapped underground in Rafah to go free? I have already answered this question. I do want to take the time actually right now to just talk about one of our other released hostages who came home over the weekend. On Saturday, Command Sergeant Major Reserves Lior Rudaeff. He was born in Argentina. He immigrated to Israel when he was 7 years old. He lived on kibbutz near Yitzchak and was the deputy security coordinator and member of the rapid response team right there on October 7th. Lior fought heroically alongside his team that horrific morning of October 7th. He fought off many terrorists outside of the gate of the community. He was ultimately killed in battle with his body taken hostage into Gaza by terrorists from Islamic Jihad. He was 61 years old at the time he was murdered, and he leaves behind his wife, his 4 children, 3 grandchildren, his father, and his 2 siblings. His remains came home over the weekend. Lior Rudaef of blessed memory, may his memory forever be a blessing as we continue to bring home all of our remaining hostages. Those are all of the questions that I see right now. Thanks so much for everyone who joined us. Please feel free to reach out to the Prime Minister's office if you have any additional questions.